Hey everybody, today I'm going to be creating another page in my mini art journal. I'm doing this page on a 4x4 art journal, but you could easily adapt this idea to a larger journal page. I've placed water in 3 of the wells in my paint palette, and then I'm squeezing some Color Sparks watercolor powder from the Berry Punch set into each of the wells, and then I'm mixing it with a palette knife to incorporate that watercolor powder into my water. And by doing this, I am now creating my very own watercolor, and now I can paint this onto my paper. With a regular paintbrush, I'm going to begin painting loose watercolor flowers onto my paper. The paper in this journal is watercolor paper, but this technique will work on standard cardstock or mixed media paper just fine. The results may look a little bit different depending on which paper you choose, but just feel free to experiment and see what kind of results you can get with the paper that you have. You may be noticing as I'm painting these flowers, small circles are showing up within the petals, and that is because when I first purchased this journal, I applied gesso through a stencil, and those marks are now showing up as I apply product over the top of them. This is a really fun idea when you want to have very subtle marks in your book, and also because I did this on every single page in my journal, I'm going to have cohesive mark making on every single page, which brings the journal together. Another thing to know is that because I made these marks with white gesso on white paper, I can't even see where they are. So it's adding an element of surprise to my artwork as I'm painting these flowers. These marks are randomly showing up, and it adds a very random irregular pattern that you can't always add when you make the marks after you've put down the color. So I really like doing it this way, especially for techniques like these watercolor flowers. So far, as I was switching from color to color and painting these flowers, I was dunking my brush into a jar of water and cleaning it. Now, as I switch back to my original first color of fuchsia, I didn't clean my brush, so there's a little bit of remnants of that orchid purple color. So you can see I'm also starting to get some different tones as I'm creating new colors by mixing the watercolors together. Some other ways that you could alter these colors: you could add more powder to the mix, which is going to give you a darker, more saturated color. Or opposite, you can add more water, which is going to give you a lighter, more diluted color. And you could also mix the powders together by putting one squeeze of each and create your very own unique colors. So there's a lot of ways to experiment and try different things with these powders. And as I'm finishing placing these flowers, you may notice that I'm also taking care to have some of the flowers go off the edge of the page. This is a technique that I really like to do because I feel like it adds more interest to the page instead of all of your elements being centered in the middle. And it also gives it more a look of just carefree random, like you tossed confetti into the air and this is how it landed. So also I'm making sure that some of the flower petals overlap, and that gives it a much more natural, organic look. After the page has dried 100%, I'm going to go in with a Posca paint pen in white and outline all of the petals. So these outlines are not exact. I want it to be very loose to kind of mimic the look of the watercolor loose petals. Some of the outlines are a little bit bigger than the petals, some are a little bit smaller, some are crooked, and then I'm going to fill in all of the purple flowers with polka dots. You could continue to customize this by adding designs in the other colored petals, or also get another paint pen in a different color and draw on some leaves. This can be customized in a multitude of ways, but I'm going to stop with the polka dots and then let this dry. I have picked a saying from the Dress My Craft quotes 1, and I'm going to cut out all the extra transfer from around the quote, and then I can begin placing this down on my page. So I've removed the clear protective backing, and then I'm going to press this down on my page. And to begin the transfer, all you need is a wet sponge. You could use a makeup sponge or a kitchen sponge. Just make sure after you use it, you leave this in your craft room and it remains a crafting item. So with a wet sponge, you're just going to make sure the entire back of your transfer is wet. You're going to know it's completely wet when it's clear and you can see your design through. And then you're just going to carefully peel that protective layer off. So you can see here, I'm just carefully going from the edge. And as soon as I can get that little bit off, I'm just going to lift it, and my transfer is complete. To complete the transfer, it's recommended that you use a sealer like gel medium or collage medium to make sure you protect that transfer. In this instance, I'm using clear gesso because I'm going to be doodling with my pens later, and I'm placing this all down with a Finnebar silicone brush. After this has had a chance to dry 100%, I'm going to go in with a Jelly Roll pen and just finish drawing in the L, the final loop of the L, as this was not part of the transfer. Next, I'm going to grab a Fude ball pen in black and start doodling some smaller flowers. And I'm going to put these flowers in gaps around my page and also overlapping some of the flowers that I created earlier with the watercolor. And I'm just going to put this randomly wherever I think until I'm happy with the look, and then I'm going to let this dry. Then the final step is to add some dots in the center of the flower. So I'm once again pulling out my Posca paint pen in white and just doing a single dot in the middle of each of those black flowers to complete my page. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you were inspired and got ideas to create in your own artwork. If so, I'd love to see them, so tag us using hashtag #ArtJournalJunction. And if you enjoyed this video and like to see more in the future, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future art journaling videos and mixed media projects.